So, it's really not a surprise to anyone that Kirito of SAO is far different from SAO Abridged. If not only for the fault of the colossally better writing in the abridged version. Now, I think it really comes down to the fact that Kirito of the Abridged series is, for lack of a better word, a character that evolves and develops. You offended yet? Alright, let's talk about SAO in the abridged version. Let's go. As I said in the intro, there's a huge difference between Kirito and an angry nerd with admin privileges, as he sort of self-dubs himself in the abridged version. Now, going forward, there's a bunch of different reasons. The first real one is to look at the way they interact with other characters. Whether it's realistic, or it's something that has potential to be motivating towards something bigger. But let's start with the initial twist. When Kirito of the original series realizes that he's part of a live or die game, and he has the experience of a beta tester, he just kind of goes off on his own and racks up a shiz ton of XP. Now, the reason for this is mainly because he doesn't want to get colossally fucked over. And I guess in a way, even though they don't really express it, it's decent for self-preservation. But I think the fact that he knows the ins and outs of the game and can help others, but kind of just doesn't for no real wishy-washy reason. And they even bring up in the first episode the fact that the beta testers had made a pamphlet. It was kind of meh. There was no real proactive action taken on the part of Kirito. However, in the abridged version, seeing how this world of live or die in the game kind of fosters his more reclusive attitude and his understanding of video games in the real world, he embraces this dark new reality. And in fact, he actually takes that whole concept and solo player kind of attitude of being on your own and giving no fucks about anybody else to a whole nother level. He obviously takes his knowledge of the game and uses it to exploit others and get what he wants. To the point even where he actually goes up to Klein and says, hey, I'm going up to a mini-boss, I'm really good at this game, and I need cannon fodder. People to get in the ways. People that I can just convince to get murdered on my behalf. Obviously, I'm just going to be there for the XP, but you know what? You're there to essentially take damage. Which is fucked up, but it's beautiful in building the fact that this character just does not give a single fuck. In the original series, Kirito is a bit of a social outcast, but he's also got this weird magnetic personality. And these two kind of things don't really mesh very well, and it doesn't play off as well in the original series. This magnetism for different women to, for no particular reason, sort of just cling to him and want to be with him, to develop this sort of harem attitude, kind of out of nowhere. It just feels very forced and meaningless, especially because he actually picks Asuna in the long run, and actually doubles, triples, and quadruples down on that ass. So with that all being said, I mean, it just feels completely hollow and meaningless. What I'm saying basically is that in the non-abridged version, the original SAO, people just sort of cling to Kirito literally because he's the protagonist. There's not a whole lot of other depth brought into it. Yes, he's a strong character, but they don't really give that any sort of credence by demonstrating it over and over again to build his character a little better. However, in the abridged version, he's cold, cutting, and ruthless, and gets what he wants. He doesn't flinch in sacrificing others, as I said before, and he does what makes the most sense for his personal survival. His himself over others kind of mentality, which, honestly, for the setting that he's in, totally makes sense. And he just says other people's feelings be damned, and if he's able to find any sort of feeling in himself, he's glad to have found it so he could kill it forever. And he's logical without any sort of apology or want to say, hey, I'm sorry. He doesn't give a shit. And it's beautiful because it makes him a consistent character throughout. Kirito of the Abridged series also has an incredibly heightened sense of self-worth, which in the setting of Kill or Be Killed makes a fair bit of sense, but he's taken it to a level where he's completely favoring himself over everybody else. He is still, even so, sensitive to a small couple of different things. For example, the fact that he sounds like a girl.
It's crazy! It's crazy!
Has a slightly feminine...
Tell you what, I'll give you the first shot. See how that goes.
You know what? Let's not talk about it. But he's got some issues with the fact that he really enjoys the digital world more than the real world. And let me tell you, other characters are damn well aware of it. And those flaws that he does have, he fully admits to and takes kind of a pride in. So now let's talk about one of the more emotional things that really was handled way better in SAO Abridged, especially dealing with how Kirito dealt with it. The Sachi issue. This, in the original version, hurts him, and he vows not to join any further guilds. He becomes more emotionally available, though, to be honest, he's super emotionally imprintable to begin with. He's got no real personal emotional tie to anything, and it's a little pathetic, actually. What they try to do with this is shift the emotional narrative to something where he's not going to necessarily be as cold and as ruthless as he's portrayed originally, which was a little bit closer to the abridged Kirito. It's just not very effective because he was already kind of wish-washy, kind of sacrificed himself for others, kind of just a softer character. But in the abridged version, you see a totally different character. At first, the abridged version of Kirito is totally against even joining the group, to the point where he gets forced into it, which is actually where the recurring meme of that goddamn hat actually comes from. He's manipulated into position, and he actually develops a bit of a resentment that slowly kind of ebbs away in the context of the narrative. And once Sachi kind of runs out on them, Kirito, though not enjoying this, he ends up going out to find her through a little bit of encouragement from one of his fellow members. And when he finds her, he has sort of a moment of discovery talking about himself. Again, still being incredibly self-involved, so staying true to that character, even though Sachi essentially had a mental breakdown. But she, again, points out to him that he is a complete asshole, and he needs to adjust his behavior to be a little nicer to people, to which he does agree, though it doesn't change him. He would be taking baby steps, but let's be real, this is the abridged version of Kirito. He does not give a fuck. However, when Sachi finally does essentially kick the bucket, and that's a little bit harsh to say, especially since this actually ends up scarring abridged Kirito for the rest of their show, actually. There are actually a bunch of callbacks to it throughout the rest of the abridged series. The fact that this is essentially what's motivating him to be a nicer character, in the fact that he was such a self-absorbed asshole that it ended up getting someone he let close to him get killed. While he becomes emotionally numb for a little while, he does slowly start to soften up to the point where he starts helping people as the guilt of someone else's death kind of comes back and hits him. That being Sachi. Alright, so let's talk about Asuna. Asuna in the regular series is kind of a bit of an antagonist for Kirito for a little bit, but at the same time, it's still not super strong. Their attitude is still pretty camaraderie in the beginning, and even when Kirito plays a bit of a dick move, it's not even that bad. They try to play it up as much as they can, but it's not super dividing between everybody. Even though Asuna and Kirito are discussing plans to deal with things, as it comes across through Egil, in the regular version of SAO, that they have a bit of a dislike for each other, it still never feels like that. It feels like they're kind of just, they got a bit of a sore spot over the last thing that happened between them on screen, which was Kirito basically saying, fuck all y'all, I'm out on my own, and then proceeds to work with everybody anyway. You just don't get that actual feeling on screen of any real tension. And then, it kind of to just almost demonstrate that there was tension, even though it wasn't really previously demonstrated very well, they essentially have this adventure where they absolve the tension slowly, even though there wasn't really anything there to begin with. They are essentially creating issues out of thin air, and that's the problem. If it's not clearly seen previously, then the plot points that they're trying to work in become weaker. And that's my problem with that. In the abridged version, though, they take a totally different path. They make it very clear that Asuna and Kirito have a negative relationship to start with. They're very much about jabbing each other and kind of just shitting on each other, even just to start with. Kirito in the abridged starts things off by saying, oh, you're not good at this game because you're a girl? No, it's actually because she's incompetent to the level where she can't open a fucking menu, which in the game is how they get to do everything. Which basically plays off this dynamic of Asuna's kind of clueless, but she's also a total battle nut, which matches with Kirito's attitude of, fuck everybody, I'ma kill shit. And also, obviously, the self-preservation thing that he's got going on. But you get the sense when they butt heads, it's legitimate. And when they do start to console and kind of grow closer, you can see that the tension that had already been previously established was starting to wear off. They were able to more playfully jab at each other, and it wasn't so incredibly assholey or bitchy one way or the other as much. Now, obviously, it was still there, and it was still very clearly present, but they did end up weakening that issue. When K and A finally get everything dealt with and they finally fall in love, it feels more legitimate because you can see their tensions dissolve and their confrontations become less aggressive and just outright angry. It becomes more of a mind game, and I think that's really, it stays true to their characters from the beginning that they were, and the kind of butting heads that they had, but at the same time it allows them to actually demonstrate more loving attributes as was shown in the original to further work into that plot line. But it also makes it feel more legitimate when they stop with the fucking mind games and they're actually honest with each other. It's more genuine development, and it feels like their characters are genuinely feeling these emotions that they're going through. And honestly, I just find it beautiful from a story perspective that they are able to fully develop these characters in that way. Let's quickly try and get through the rest of the dual wielding, which is essentially to say this. This is, in the original, just another instance for Kirito to play savior, hero, random dude who's just a Mary Sue and can do anything that he puts his mind to, and his random ability to gather another sword, which becomes way too much the focus of the episode and the idea. And I get, in a sense, that there was a little bit of, he's trying to keep everybody alive, keep everybody together, as it's kind of been his whole main arc, for the most part, kind of. Again, it wasn't super well developed, but that being said, that is his kind of idea and his prerogative going forward. But the fact that dual wielding became this huge revolutionary thing and was focused way too much on, I think they should have changed that. Now, in direct contrast to the original Kirito, the abridged outright asks himself why the fuck he's saving people. He understands that in a game where it's either you live or you're dead, you only get to survive once. He outright says, why the fuck am I doing this? Makes no sense, and I should be letting them die so that I can escape. However, for whatever reason, and he even says it, he has been made to feel for these people, to empathize, to truly connect with humanity and want to further the cause. So he's gone from an absolutely hateful character, someone who doesn't give a fuck about humanity, and doesn't give a shit about anybody else in the game surviving or making it through, to someone who begrudgingly decides that, you know what, even though it might seem stupid or insane or insipidly just foolish to try and make sure everybody gets through and just care for yourself, he slowly has to realize that he's been made to care for these people through Asuna and Klein and other characters that have allowed him to more accurately humanize himself and realize that these are all people he wants to protect. He actually speaks to the flawed nature of humanity, in fact, and it's very interesting because it's actually a really, really well-written episode where he talks about how fucked up humanity is, and yet in spite of that, he has decided he's going to try and save these people. Just something I needed to add. The dual wielding becomes a total background issue. It's not something that they focus on half the episode for and put way too much development into, even though realistically I don't think they explained the dual wielding in the original very well. In the Abridged series they spent maybe a sentence on it and then they moved on forward to something more interesting. What really took more precedence in that episode was the fact that Kirito, someone who considered himself cold, emotionally dissonant, and distant from other characters, emotionally lashed out and dealt damage to someone without the need to feel like he's doing something wrong. It's a huge developmental moment for the character. Now that that's done, let's get to the black sheep, Yui. In the original, she's just kind of a weird plot device, and I mean that in both the sense of trying to make a family dynamic work in the original, and also the fact that she's an AI that ends up doing fucking random shit for them for no real reason. It's such an odd dynamic to try and bring in to a bunch of 14, 15, and 16-year-olds. The idea of being parents. It's kind of fucked up. Instead of just going along with it in the abridged version, however, Kirito and Asuna are like, no, fuck that. That's insane. I don't want a kid. Let's drop you off on a corner. They're like, that's the worst idea, which makes a lot more sense. On top of this, when that doesn't end up being very fruitful, they end up integrating her into their mind games because they are still having this mind game issue where they're fighting each other saying, hey, let's do this so that we can get this at the end goal, even though it doesn't end up doing that. It ends up bringing them closer together in the end, which is just beautiful writing on its own. So Yui is more effectively utilized in the Abridged series, and she's very quickly brought in and brought out in a way that doesn't make it so just weird. I don't know how else to describe the original. So in the original, Kayaba's kind of just... well, he actually forgets his whole motivation, which I think is ridiculous. How can you have a character who's been essentially the pivotal plot point of this entire show have the most meaningless character arc? He's gone through this whole crazy Machiavellian kind of shit, and he doesn't even have a reason anymore. He forgot after 2 years. I mean, sure, I get that being sort of put into a game for 2 years and going through all these experiences might make you forget why he eventually made this weird 3D realism game that can kill you. But still, why would you not take that opportunity and find something really deep and interesting to talk about? Because you had all the opportunity to do that. Now, in the abridged version, they completely... first of all, they make fun of this by showing how completely bullshit that kind of idea even is. And then they even make Kayaba a humanized character by making him into just as much of a fuck-up as everybody else. And I mean this in the sense that he's not even understanding, oh shit, what Asuna brought up would have been a way better way to explain this other than getting a rushed video game out. Which, by the way, the part where they mentioned Bethesda, oh my god, I died. So yeah, instead of doing that, he just doubles, triples, and quadruples down and tries to go full on for ratings of all things, which is ridiculous. But at the same time, at least it makes more sense in a human context. You know, yeah, obviously, you know, these websites weren't necessarily around when this was all being developed in the original series, but they could have at least said the reason that I did this was to simulate an older world or something. You know, going back to where humans were forced to reveal themselves as they truly were. Anyway, guys, that's just my thoughts on Kirito, as well as a little bit of the abridged version in more depth when I talked about Kaiba, obviously at the end. Basically, what I can say is that Kirito of the Abridged took the loose kind of plot points of the original and really tightened up a lot of things, and also made the character much more believable and humanized, as well as the villain made him more sensible, I guess. He made more sense why he was doing what he was doing. It might have been a totally fucked up, stupid reason, but at least you could totally understand why he did it. He was up for like, what, 2-3 weeks or something straight, where he was completely fucking delusional. And now, if you like this video, please subscribe, like this video, and share with all your friends, because that is how I get to share this shit with you all the time and have a blast doing it. It's because you guys get to see this, and you guys get to continually enjoy it, and let other friends enjoy it who enjoy that sort of thing. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, as I said, subscribe, like, comment down below as to what you want to see me doing next week or the week after. Those of you who are Flash and Arrow and otherwise CW fans in general, and are looking for more content like that, we'll probably be back to normal as of next Friday, because the CW shows do come back by then. So we'll have a little bit of time to work on a theory for what's going on with that and the future Flash. So if you guys are interested in that, next Friday we'll be releasing a video like that. But also Thursday will be a new vlog. If you guys want more content or something different on Thursday, let me know. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you don't leave a comment down below, you can also reach me at my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm most active on my Facebook, but if you want to tweet at Splice Night or at Splice Night on Instagram, you can do that as well. I'm Splice Night on all social media platforms that you can find me on. I'm not on Snapchat. I'm not on other stuff other than what I mentioned. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed that, let me know, and I will talk to you guys next time. Splice Night out.